Charmed Life Therapy, powerfully and subconsciously changing your life. Hello, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy back with another update. All about emotions today, I guess, and Blake Lively and accountability and what it means to be in the public eye, I guess. It's quite funny as well that I have finally made the docket. Initially, unbeknownst to me, and made it into one of Leanne Newton's videos, I believe, as well. All without knowledge to me initially. And that's kind of part of my argument here today, because there's kind of a fair bit of territoriality going on when it comes to this case, and little groups forming. And sometimes little groups forming is a good thing, and sometimes little groups forming is a not so good thing, because people get very judgmental and do a lot of putting two and two together, and a lot of I think this, meaning I imagine this. And kind of my purpose in doing these videos all along, I know just lately I've been doing a lot more of the documents themselves, but it's always been to talk about the emotions and holding ourselves accountability and calling ourselves on our BS and things like that. And kind of, I am always watchful where I'm still being a hypocrite, and I've reached a point in my life where I'm quite good now at thinking a thought and thinking, now, is that just my ego talking? Am I being reactive? Could it be something entirely different? And sometimes I will voice those things anyway, just because I think they need to be said, but I will always call myself on whether I was being reactionary, if that makes sense. And I do hold myself to my words, and I hold myself to the fact that it won't please everybody, and I might have to live with that as well. So where I want to kind of start, so if you're wondering how I've shown up on the docket for starters, so the other day, J Alexander Townsend, who I don't know whether it's a man, a woman, or more than one person. I know some people are out there who do claim to know who it is. So there was very long omnibus of motions to quash, I think it was termed, the other day. I'm going to bring things up in a minute. And the other day, Leanne and Mandy Magnan were doing a video, which I believe is titled something like The James Vituska of It All. And as part of this, they touched on J Alexander Townsend's omnibus motion to quash in brief. And did I say Joey had pointed me in the direction of all this information? Joey that I did a video with a week or so ago, it was Joey that made me go look for this, because she says, do you know you made it on the docket? And I didn't know. But funnily enough, it was about this. I'd actually made a video the other day about this omnibus of motions to quash that J Alexander Townsend had done. But what I didn't realise at that point, because there was only one of the three attachments available, was that in one of the other attachments that I couldn't get was a picture of my face and a screenshot of my YouTube account as I talked with Joey about matters in general and just getting a different perspective on the case. So I officially made it onto the docket via that. So I came late to the party of I'd actually done that lengthy video the other day, meanwhile not knowing my face was actually in there somewhere, which is quite funny. But it brings up interesting questions, does this? And that's kind of what I want to talk about a bit today, because talking to somebody else, they were quite affronted that J Alexander Townsend had done this motion and previous things that they put on, and talked about them in terms of being a nut job. And I kind of bristled at that, because it makes me kind of question things about myself, because it's like, well, am I too gullible? Am I too open-minded? Because I read those things. I've read those things of J Alexander Townsend's. I know some people probably aren't giving them much context or much notice. I don't think they're busy covering the other things. But I find them very interesting and really for kind of, especially for those people who are not really following it or only want to follow certain bits of it that appeal to them. Because I think J Alexander Townsend, whether you like it or not, has quite a good way of summing up all the salient points and putting them into one docket and giving an emotional perspective on it as well as quoting some quite good legal arguments. So whether you want to say it's actionable or not, I think it has value in terms of putting things into a nutshell. So I looked at it from that perspective, not as to what is this person's motives in doing that. I'm not looking to pass judgment on this person. My perspective is more like, oh, isn't that is interesting? I'd be quite talented at doing this. But other people's perspective is like, who is this nut job who thinks they have the right to put things on this docket, and they've not even proved they had a subpoena. Some people are saying J Alexander Townsend has been subpoenaed. I think they allude to it in this document that they think they have been subpoenaed, but they've not got any personal, it's not actually come to them. I think it's along that lines. But I kind of, so Leanne and Mandy had done this video the other day and briefly touched on this, and they're like, well, this person shouldn't be bringing us to attention again to Blake Lively. We've only just got the subpoena situation sorted out. This person can't even prove that they've been subpoenaed. I don't know who this is. I don't know what their motivations are. And saying things like Cassidy was furious because there's something of her screenshotted in there. But I think this, and she also kind of says about me, I don't know who this person is. I believe they've only done one interview. I'll have to look into it more or something along those lines. Which kind of makes you bristle, doesn't it? Like if it were you, it's like, oh, what do you think I am? It's because I thought, no, Leanne, I've only done like nearly 80 videos on it at this point. I've only interviewed one person, which happened to be Joey. But I think what Leanne and Mandy were trying to get a handle on of what the motivation was of J Alexander Townsend, what do they hope to achieve, and do they have the right to speak for them as a voice of the masses, if you like, when they've beetled away doing their own work on it, or Leanne specifically, because I don't believe Mandy was subpoenaed, was she? But she's certainly been on the docket before, and actually celebrated being on the docket before. But yeah, their argument over these screenshots that J Alexander Townsend has provided, and I'll show you them in a minute, is that J Alexander Townsend should not be putting focus on them and bringing them Blake Lively's attention potentially back on them, kind of accusing J Alexander Townsend of doxing them, if you like. And that's kind of where I have a problem with it, really. Because the thing is, if you're going to make videos on YouTube and thumbnails, I mean, I've got some notes. So if Cassidy in particular was kind of outraged about this J Alexander Townsend thing, well, Cassidy is putting videos on YouTube, which is not some like secret society for us content creators where we get to say what we want and nobody holds us accountable. And I guess maybe I was thinking to myself, why don't I resonate really with Leanne or Cassidy as such? Why aren't I watching their videos? Because it's not like I feel like they're not good people or anything like that. But I don't, like when I'm scrolling YouTube or looking at my feed, I don't feel pulled to go watch one of Leanne's or Cassidy's videos. And I think partly it's because of the length, although I'm getting guilty of doing long ones as I started, doing the court docket more. But I don't want to listen to 2 hours of people just kind of, I've got too much to do in my life. I'm a single person who has to do everything themselves, as well as run a business and a house and a dog and a car and the garden and the rest of it. You know what I mean? I don't have an awful lot of time. On an evening, I've all along staying awake, not to listen to 2 hours of people just really chewing the fat. So I think that's maybe why sometimes I've stayed away. But it's also that fact, I think, of I don't know these people. I can't see their faces. I don't know their real names. So I think subconsciously somewhere there's an element of that for me with Leanne and Cassidy as to why I'm not watching. Because I think there's a part of me that thinks if you are going to show up and you're going to talk smack about somebody, which in essence is what we're all doing. We're all chewing the fat over Blake Lively and giving our personal perspective on court documents. So at some point, we do have to hold ourselves accountable. And I know people say, well, I'm a victim and I can't risk this because I've had this court case in the past and I've had this stalker or I've been this victim of DV or whatever it is. But the thing is, you're still making a choice to show up on something that goes across the world to anybody that wants to see it. And you're choosing to put yourself out there and make, you know, quite inflammatory statements at times, as we all are doing. And this is where I think we have to hold ourselves to the same standards as Blake Lively should be holding herself to. Because Blake Lively feels that she can say anything about anybody and imply anything, and she doesn't have to account for it. And we're saying, no, that's not acceptable. But do you see the hypocrisy when we then say we want to be able to say whatever we want and not be held and not be spotlighted or highlighted? We want to jump on YouTube, say whatever we want, but we fully expect people not to take screenshots of that or whatever it is, or snippets of that, and put it somewhere else. You know, because we don't want just anybody to hear what we're saying, even though we're jumping on YouTube and saying it. You know, if grief comes to me because of this, I remember thinking at the time, I mean, I didn't ever think I was really at risk of being subpoenaed by Blake Lively, but I was aware she was subpoenaing some very small accounts, of course. So I thought, well, it could in theory happen, but it's like, if it had have happened, I would have held myself to account for that, because I was the one that chose to jump on social media and start talking about this, and I can choose to stop talking about this at any point I choose to, you know. And it's like, if Cassidy's angry about the screenshot that J Alexander Townsend has used, well, if she can't stand behind her convictions, there's a problem, because that screenshot was how many conflicts of interest did Judge Lyman forget to disclose? Now, it might anger some people out there that I say, well, if you're going to put that on YouTube, you have to stand behind the fact that there might be consequences for it. And I don't think you can blame somebody else for screenshotting it, because you're the one that's got it on the internet that's live for everybody to go and watch. What harm is the screenshot, really? You don't think Lyman has an odd look on YouTube for his name, or Google? And you know what I mean? You can't say I need it to be private totally while still being on a public worldwide forum. You just can't pick and choose, to my mind. And it kind of made me laugh, really, in a way, because I thought, well, Leanne and Mandy doing this video and bringing up that document and showing all those screenshots, including my face and Cassidy's disputed thumbnail that she didn't want Judge Lyman to see or Blake Lively to see, that in itself is doing the same thing, isn't it? It's circulating it, populating it, making more people aware of it. If Joey hadn't seen it and told me, I wouldn't have seen it at all. Everybody's doing it to everybody. So I feel like you can't get precious about it, because if you're going to jump on the internet and do these things, you have to realize that you have very little control of it once it's out there. And I think sometimes I have quite a different perspective about these things due to the nature of my life, which has been really quite unusual. Not as horrific as some people that have had physical abuse and things, but it's been very damaging in quiet and subtle ways. And I often say that subtle trauma is the worst in a way, really, because you don't get that same sympathy. There's nobody that's going to mop up for you afterwards or anything like that, because subtle trauma is the kind of trauma where people think, I'll just get over it, or it was nothing, or they don't take your feelings into account, or think of the long-term repercussions for you. You know, that kind of emotional neglect, those kinds of things where people just fail to see that you have needs, but that are actually really more harmful long term. So just quickly about me, to kind of explain what I mean and why kind of it's still a novelty for me to be noticed. And so I don't get wound up about it in the same way that other people do, because I was actually brought up to be quiet, to not raise my hand in class. I wasn't brought up with confidence. I was a smart kid, but because confidence hadn't and self-esteem hadn't been instilled in me, I wouldn't have put my hand up in class and such like that. And I was often overlooked for things that I thought I might have talent for because I couldn't speak up for myself. I was taught as a kid to be subservient, to do things for others. My mum went to work nights when I was 2 years old, so I had to sleep when she slept and fit into her routine. And you learn to be very quiet and very small and very unnoticed. And that has long-term repercussions for you and people-pleasing tendencies. And right from being very young, I had to go do this for this person and that for that person and take over somebody else in the family's thing that they didn't, jobs were handed down to you as the youngest in the family. And you learned very quickly that you weren't allowed to have boundaries. You weren't allowed to have feelings about something. There was no choice. And it led to, a lot of my life giving my needs, flattening down my needs in order to serve somebody else's. And it's taken a long time to get past that. And even now, I have to question myself sometimes. I've hit a wall right now where I literally think, I cannot help anybody right now. It has to be about me. And it's like, I've hit this wall where it's like, I'm just going to do what's right for me now. I don't care about anybody else's feelings right now or what anybody else needs. Nobody else is just going to take from me right now. So it's a funny thing when you kind of realize all of your life that you've been quiet and you've played the game and you've done this, that, and the other. Etienne, because when I first released my romance novels that I wrote, and not one of my family really credited this with me with this. It's almost like, oh, it's like embarrassing, oh, I don't know how to deal with that. I don't want to read them. I don't want to know what's in them. I don't want to get a look into her mind or anything like that. And the first time I released them, I did it anonymously because of this fear of being seen, of being out there, people making up their own mind, making a perception up about me, if you like. And then what happened? I thought I picked a really unusual author name. And then this bloody dodgy erotic writer, and it wasn't even good erotic writing, she stole my pen name. And I was like, oh, I can't have that now showing up in the same search criteria. So I kind of hit a moment where it's like, right, do I pick another pen name where somebody could equally just come along and use that same pen name again and I'd have to start over? Or do I use my own name? And my own name is it's like Anne-Marie Cassidy. And the specific spelling of Anne, it's very unlikely that somebody would have exactly the same way of spelling Anne-Marie and Cassidy together. And so I had a decision to be made. Am I going to put these sexually explicit novels out on the internet for all to see and make a judgment on with my name on them and have everybody be able to make up their minds about me or make assumptions about me or make assumptions about what I like sexually? You know what I mean? I had a decision to make and I thought, fuck this. Because all of my life, all of my childhood, I was like the family embarrassment, the thing that people didn't know what to do with. I left school at 12 with school phobia, and that school phobia only came into my life because I was so tired of trying to emotionally parent myself. So school phobia came into my life in order to try and get me some notice. And when that didn't fully work, another bad thing happened and another bad thing and another bad thing because my body, my mind kept trying to get me some attention. And when your subconscious mind gets into that mode, it will try all manner of things that are truly painful for you to live with in order for somebody to see you making that cry for help. And that's what happened to me. So it was a big deal that somewhere between 38 and 40 as to whether I went live with these novels in my own name and gave people that snapshot, if you like, into the workings of my mind. But I did it. I went with it. I got very little credit for it. My mum kind of was very embarrassed because we didn't talk about sex in our family. It was kind of a shameful thing, even though my mum had 6 children. When I got my period, I didn't know what it was because I got it at 11. And I guess my mum was thinking I was too young to. And I remember you get your period and it's like, I don't know what this is. And you go down and try and find somebody to help. And mum always seemed to have like an army of people around her. And that's how I remember it, because there was a lot of kids, but there was also used to be a lot of people coming and going, socially and things. And mum was well into the church and all of this. And it's like, who do I ask for help here? And I think my sister went and helped me initially. And then later, mum gave me this book to read about all matters sexual. And that was it. So it's like I hit 12 and it's like, I can't do this on my own anymore. I was just about to go to high school. Things felt like they were different. I didn't feel like I was in control of myself anymore. I was questioning everything about myself. So I had a bit of a blow up, in order to try and get some attention. But that then led to a situation where I could always be perceived as the weak one of the family and the one in the family that wasn't in their right mind and such. So all my life, I've had this problem of being underrepresented, if you like, in a way of people not thinking I had anything of value to give, or wasn't worth notice maybe, or flew under the radar, or don't talk about her because it's kind of embarrassing if we have to explain to all and sundry why Anne-Marie isn't at school or why there's a problem. That makes the family look bad. There was all of those subcurrents going on. So yeah, so I went live with these books, and one of the things Mum said to me was, "Why couldn't you write children's books?" And it's like I just remember thinking, and that was at the time when everything was changing for me. I'd done a lot of work on myself. I think I'd had rapid transformational therapy at that point, so I was better at taking things on the chin and actually just saying, that's really not appropriate to say to me because I put a lot of work into this. And you should just be proud of me for what I choose to put out there, not what you would rather I put out there. So kind of this argument that Leanne and Cassidy and Mandy are saying, it kind of rankles with me a little bit, because it's like, you've got a choice. You chose to put yourself out there, and you are choosing to come down hard on Blake Lively, as most of us believe for the right reasons. But who made us judge, jury, and executioner? We did. And there's a responsibility that comes with that too. And if it goes wrong, we have to live with the consequences, as well. And when I say that, I'm not saying in any way that Blake Lively should have subpoenaed anybody. I don't believe in that. And as well, about the subpoena issue, what was being flying under the radar a little bit is we're really not quite sure of the vast scope of people that Blake Lively has subpoenaed, and we've not been taken on board so far that every one of those subpoenas, if anybody's raised a motion to quash, or she's wanted to transfer, or whatever it is, or she's raised a motion to compel, it's like a mini lawsuit all in itself, all over the bloody place in America. There's ones now that we've not really been touching on, because she was also trying to compel Lina Friedman's investigation agency that they hired in late December to look into Blake and Ryan's companies. They've been subpoenaed. So we're going to bring up a few things to do with that. And there's also people like Tara Hanks, that I don't know if she's still the president of Wayfarer Studios, but she was subpoenaed. And I think, it's all this business of Blake subpoenaing everybody everywhere and wanting to bring them all to New York to fight on her terms. And this is going on all over the place quite quietly, and there's some interesting little bits and pieces. But yeah, I'm just going to pause it while I check my notes, and then I'll come back. So yeah, when it comes to content creators, I think the danger of people growing and their accounts getting bigger is it validates that what you're doing is on the right track in a way, doesn't it? And it emboldens you to say bigger and more wide sweeping things, if you like, but you to kind of really watch yourself when that start happening. It is like Peter Parker, isn't it? With great power comes great responsibility, because you've got to be aware of that herd mentality, and that you start living in this echo chamber where you start only hearing what you want to hear, and you've got like a band of yes men around you, basically, which it can be like when you have your own audience. That's Blake's problem, really, is that she has a band of paid yes people in her world that are supporting her position on things, and that's the danger, isn't it? And it's like whenever you comment on my videos, if you watch, when I feel you're getting a little bit hateful or a bit like you're slipping, you're getting a bit personal about Blake or things like that, I try and reel you back in a little bit. I try and diffuse it. I don't feed. I try to comment back to you in a way that acknowledges what you're saying, but also tries to just flip it a bit for you, because I don't want you descending into hate or girl gang mentality or anything like that, because you lose your perception on what's really worth having a perception on, if you like. And like Mandy is sticking on thumbnails on the internet like the only one lying in capital letters is Blake Lively in capital letters, and her team in capital letters. So you can't really then critique somebody else for screenshotting the likes of this and say, oh, they shouldn't be doing that because that's going to get me attention and notoriety and somebody might come after me. The mere fact of putting it on YouTube says all those things, and you can't want attention and clicks and monetization and all the rest of it and then say, but I don't want to be noticed for the things I don't want to be noticed for either. And that's kind of the danger when you start a YouTube channel and you say, I want to be anonymous. I don't want people knowing my story, but I want to be able to say anything I want about anybody else. And because I'm anonymous, the person on the other side of the argument won't be able to put their point of view across as well. And I know kind of what I'm saying here is a bit controversial, and it might make people not like me, and it might make other content creators maybe not appreciate me very much. But I do think we all have to watch ourselves. You know what I mean? I've said before that I'm doing a course in miracles. So actually for me to be doing this, to be jumping on the internet and saying stuff about Blake Lively and judging her and maybe encouraging some of you in some way to nurture a grievance about it, is very much against the spirit of a course in miracles. So when I make these videos, more than anything, what I want you to do is just take what value you can of watching yourself and your own actions and seeing bits of yourself in Blake Lively and the people around her, picking up on where possibly you've gone wrong in your life by only believing your own perspective of something, or getting really into your ego mind and getting really internalized as I think many of us think she has. You know what I mean? So I've always said all along that this is happening for a reason. There wasn't this perfect maelstrom of events that happened all at the same time. It wouldn't have happened on any other set because of the two personalities and how opposite they are and such as that. This thing has universally come into fruition for a reason, and there's a reason it's touched on all sorts of topics, from the Me Too to the free speech and everything else in between. It's God or universe or whoever showing you a mirror and saying, these are problems within the world that need to be looked at. But you can choose to take this case, or whatever you want to call it, and look at it with hate and as a focus of all of the pain in your life. And this is your chance to get revenge, if you like, by focusing it on this one person, this one demon, Blake Lively. Or you can choose to look at it as, what can I learn about myself? And that's kind of what I've tried to do with these videos, but maybe it's been a mistake going too much down the court docs route, as I have done lately. But then at the same time, I feel like you've got a responsibility to look at the court docket and the documents if you're going to put yourself out there on the internet and be spouting off about it, basically. So I wasn't offended I mean, Joey actually messaged me about this quite late at night, and it made me kind of not be able to go to sleep that quickly because I'm thinking, well, because she didn't know right off the bat. I thought, I'm not messaging her now to find out whereabouts on the docket it is because it won't do me any good trying to get to sleep. But it didn't bother me. I didn't have an instant rush of fear or anything like that. Neither did it elate me. I was very like neutral feeling. It was kind of half amusing, I guess, but it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I don't know how that's happened really. Um, so yeah, so it was through J Alexander Townsend, but it was there already as I was even talking about it. I didn't know it was there, that's all. So I'm going to bring up the documents. But yeah, just going back to Leanne and Mandy and all of this outrage when you are a person on the internet making videos about a highly publicized event. I don't really think you can have a huge complaint about somebody snapshotting that information and using it elsewhere and saying, that's not what I intended it for. They don't get to do that. I'm sorry, when you've done something publicly, I just think you just don't have the right to, create or get irate about it and things like that. And it's like it's manufactured anger to me is more, it's like it's you like to have a reason to get mad about something. And I think you've to watch that because we can all get a bit like that, it's like you could argue Blake's like that really in a way that she walks around looking for a problem and then enhances that problem and magnifies it, and other people around her magnify it, and that's been part of the problem in this case. But yeah, I don't really think that you can say that, well, they've effectively, J. Alexander Townsend has effectively doxed me by putting me in this document and putting it on the court docket, and I'm really mad about it and all of this. When you're out there on YouTube making videos about it, you know what I mean? I just don't think. I mean, it would be not. I mean, their argument was like we could have been asked about it. They could approach us and that. And it's like, yeah, you could say that, but I still think, I just, yeah, it would be nice to be asked, but is it all that important really? Would be, but it might be that that's my unique perspective on the world as somebody that was brought up to be really quiet and not be noticed and not be recognized. Because I'm like now, I don't care who knows what about me or wants to make whatever kind of judgment about me, because I'm sick of being damn quiet and I'm sick of not being recognized and I'm sick of not being appreciated. So I don't really care. And I was saying this to Joey, and she took that to say that I felt like I was indestructible. And I think it's the very opposite of that. It's the very opposite of feeling indestructible. It's feeling like you've nothing left to lose in a way, because you've lost out on so much of life through the stream of events that happen to you. So much of what these women who are out there making these videos take for granted, like family, husband, support system. I have none of that. My life could end in a blink because it's literally run by me and me alone and financed by me and all, you know what I mean? And that's because of the chain of events that happened in my life. So do I feel indestructible? No. But do I feel like I'm in it on my own? Yeah, pretty much, to be honest. But it's like, I don't really care at this point because life has taught me that, why not? Why not shake some stuff up? Why not blow some stuff up? Why not be fearless? Why not put your face out there? Why not say what you think? I got judged for being the good girl. Being the good girl didn't work for me, so I might as well just be whatever I want to be. So I don't. So sometimes I will react very differently to I know how other people do with certain sensibilities. I mean, I think for Joey, she wants to do her own channel and talk about what she wants to talk about, but she doesn't want it being connected to other things going on in her life. And I'm like, my perspective on that would be a bit different because I kind of want people to know all of me in a way because I felt unknown throughout my life. So I'm not precious, I guess, about things as such. I had to be secretive as a child, and nobody talked about what happened to me outside of the family. So I learned to kind of almost have to fib in order to just be passable to other people. You know what I mean? So I couldn't talk about who I was or how I felt or anything like that. And my family are quite horrified that I talk about things from the past, and they won't have a conversation with me about the past or feelings or how the differences in how we experienced our upbringing. They just don't want to deal with it. So it's so like it does give me quite a unique perspective on things, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't have the same delicacies, I would say, as certain other people that are a bit precise about, well, I want to talk about this, but I don't want this noticing, and I don't want this, and I don't. And I think, yeah, but if you're going to jump on YouTube or something like it and be a spokesperson of sorts, you're a public figure, aren't you? You know what I mean? And people are going to go looking for what they want to look for about you, in essence. So let's just have a quick run through some things. I'll see if I can share the right thing. Let's just briefly touch on the Ryan Reynolds thing, because I know people are talking about, is this an issue that, you know, is he distancing himself from Blake? And this was the post he put on his IG, wasn't it? And I think it was actually Brianna Eve that drew my attention to this. So thank you, Ashley. And I think that was the initial post, this bit here. And then I think this was added on a bit later, or aspects of it was, from what I understand. And if what people are saying is true, I think it gives you quite a horrible snapshot into Ryan Reynolds' mind. Because whether she kind of, I hate to say conned, but say conned him into this lawsuit, in essence, maybe fudged the details about SH or whatever you want to call it, or he caught a text message or an email somewhere, or saw something on set he didn't like and put two and two together, and then she fudged it as saying it was something else or whatever, however he came into this. I know some of you think that it was organized from the start and the rest of it. And I don't know. We don't know the truth of that. I'm not sure we ever will know at what point this conspiracy of taking over the movie came into play. But there's people that say, and I would tend to believe it, that a lot of this is coded language, or he wants us to think this is coded language. Because don't forget, this is all a game to him specifically. This is all a game. Even while it's terrible and expensive and hanging over the whole family, there's an aspect of this that is, I am sure, a game that he has to win to Ryan Reynolds. And he will do things like use coded language or do things that make us think it's coded language, because either way he wins. So what he wins by me talking about it right now. But it's like, you kind of ask yourself first, is he talking about his mother Tam Tam, or is Tam Tam code for Blake or somebody else? You know what I mean? Because he didn't put a post on for a birthday, which is weird because he always did. Now you could say, did he not do it because he would have had to close the comments anyway? But one would say, you would jump on and support your wife at this time in her life in this particular year, wouldn't you? And just immediately close the comments off or whatever. So he knows by not commenting on her birthday that it'll cause a stir. So you've got to think, well, he can't be on good terms with his wife then, can he? How else can you read that, really? So P.S. For the love of all that's holy, do not tell my mom her boyfriend is changing shirts. So this is about Ollie Palmer moving to a different football club. Tam Tam is unpredictable. See last slide, which is another picture. Swindon can expect her to storm the pitch to provide fresh orange slices to Ollie without warning. She's 80 years old, but homegirl is strong. Despite it making no sense at all, she just now qualified for the 1988 Olympics. And all of that could be could be something that's relevant to do with the 1988 Olympics. It could be alluding that Blake is strong, homegirl is strong. we suspect she's on something a little stronger than calcium supplements. He could be alluding to his wife being on something stronger than calcium supplements. That we have no clue how this man's mind worked. Her birthday card at the Hugh Jackman said, "Do you even lift, bro?" And some people have said, is that alluding to Baldoni not being able to, or asking the trainer about Blake's weight because he was going to have to lift her? Not even happy birthday. Is that saying I wouldn't even wish her happy birthday? We don't know. But we know this man thinks this is funny, that he thinks this is appropriate, that we'll all sit and look at that and read all manner of things into it. So to me, it kind of highlights what kind of person he is, really. It's like, get on with it, mate, isn't it, really? Let me close that off. Right, what's next? So, I think it's all of these. Right, so hopefully you can see that there. I might just blow it up a little bit. So like I was saying, we've got these subpoenas all over the place, these little mini lawsuits, basically. And this one, I'm just going to briefly read. So this is Lively v. Hanks. So Hanks was or is, I'm not quite sure, president of Wayfair Studios. And I think she was previously to do with CAA, the artists agency. So she's well versed in what it is to be in the movie industry. So this was so this was her being compelled, I guess, by Blake Lively. Blake Lively moves to compel 8 individual respondents to comply with non-party documents. So you imagine this is going on all over the place, these mini lawsuits. So this is Tara Hanks's side responding. But it's a similar refrain. But as Blake Lively concedes, there are no active disputes regarding whether the subpoenas were validly served, whether the subpoenas seek relevant information, or whether the subpoenas are subject to any substantive objections, because this Tara Hanks was basically giving her whatever, was relevant for her to give and not disputing this. But indeed, as Lively also points out, the respondents initially only objected on the basis of venue in the Southern District of New York, in brackets, because that is where Lively first filed the identical motion to compel filed here, but otherwise did not raise any substantive objections or defences to the subpoena. So far as Lively understands, the respondents have agreed to produce all relevant non-privileged materials. And then the most important bit, in other words, there is no ripe substantive discovery dispute between Lively and the respondents on the merits of the non-party requests. What Lively seeks to compel then isn't the production any category of documents that the respondents are refusing to prove. No, what Lively disproves of is how long it's been taking the respondents to actually complete their production in a timely manner. So Lively wants action now, or no later than 10 days from now, because she is concerned that the respondents are seeking to delay and prolong discovery. For their part, of course, the respondents maintain that any delay has been justified by the breadth of the document requests and the number of digital devices from which potentially responsive information must be collected. Even so, the respondents' counsel represents that productions will be done as soon as June 27th. But it's just this thing, isn't it? She wants it and she wants it now. And the problem is all along, it's this thing of only seeing your own perspective, because the problem has been all along that she has no case. So she's needed this speed all along. She's been trying to push people along all of the time because she has no case. So she needs that speed because she fast needs to be composing this case. So it's kind of sad, really, that all across the country there are these little conversations going on in courtroom over how unreasonable Blake Lively is. And she just does not see what she's doing to herself. And that is why I do highlight when I think people are getting a bit of possessiveness over this whole court case, or a little bit of group mentality, and we all belong to this group thing, and I feel like there was a bit of that with Leanne and Mandy the other day. It's like these people are outside of our little group that really knows what's going on, the people that were subpoenaed or whatever. And it was a bit derogatory in tone. It wasn't bad, but it was a little bit derogatory in tone in this video until somebody pointed out that there was somebody on the chat, and I won't say the user handle, but they said they're on the chat, it's this user handle, and straight away the tone of Mandy and Leanne changed. And I think that's when, you know, you need to look at that and think we're all guilty of doing that from time to time. We'll say anything that we think we can, or in any tone we like, when we think no one's not watching. The minute we think that person is there, it's like straight away changes, and it's like, oh, if you want to get in touch, or I can help, or whereas previously they were alluding more to the fact that this is a person that's not got the finger on the pulse, kind of thing. So that's what I'm saying about this case. Watch and learn basically all of the time, even in terms of the content creators and where they might be letting their own personal biases and their own personal triggers get the best of them too, myself included. You feel free to point out the flaws in me and my arguments too. So this is what I went through the other day, and obviously I'm not going to do it again, but the J Alexander Townsend thing, because I think Leanne and Mandy were saying we don't really know what this person, J Alexander Townsend, who put this omnibus of motions to quash and for non-party relief as a collective, they didn't really know what he or she was trying to accomplish with all of this, or whether it is more than one person. Because I think sometimes you could read from this that it almost seems like there's more than one voice going on, is what I feel, because sometimes it's very legal and very professional, and other times the language is a bit familiar and not how you'd compose it for a court. I would say that a little bit. But I think my interpretation of it and my feeling about it, and of course you see my feeling on it will be different to Leanne and Mandy's, because they will have their feelings based on what's happened in their life, and I will have my feeling about things based on what's happened in my life. My feeling was, I get a sense of this person is doing their best to keep reminding the judge, because the judge is so far ignoring all of the content creators that are saying, that, I mean, it's too late now, but I mean, at the time we're saying she should have to bring a compelling argument as to why she needs a subpoena. She shouldn't be able to just willy-nilly send subpoenas out. And then they were saying, these lawyers are not being above and beyond. I still can't say above board. I keep saying above and beyond. I did it the other day. I need a vocal coach, clearly. Where was I? So yeah, wanting sanctions from the lawyers basically, and they were also saying things about, the lawyers alluding that there'd been meet and confers happened that hadn't happened between the content creators and them. So there's kept being people dotted about that have said, I want sanctions. I need my expenses back, whatever it is. So I look at this J Alexander Townsend thing as trying to remind the judge that you haven't addressed these valid concerns of the regular people out there that are kind of a collective, a group with a common purpose, and we're all content creators as such, and we've all got an opinion and blah, blah, blah. So I don't have a problem with this person. I don't know what their motivations are clearly, but it doesn't feel inflammatory to me. And I don't feel precious about why should they get to put something on the docket when we've all put things on the docket and we've not had any, positive outcome from doing that. And that was what was bothering me about Leanne and Mandy's video a little bit. It's like it's a bit like an us and them mentality, and it just flags up to me that us and Blake feel like an us and them mentality, and I just kind of want all of us that are content creating about it and stuff to kind of just always be examining, because when people do get successful about things, the negative aspects of yourself grow along with the positive aspects, don't they? And it's always to be self-monitoring. I think that's what I would say to you whenever you're doing something similar. So basically, J Alexander Townsend was respectfully requesting that the court grant the non-parties motions for relief in this matter. Such motions include a motion to quash as well as a special motion for sanctions for abuse of process and contempt of court. And I know Leanne was saying they're not specific, they're not referring to specific items on the docket as such when he's talking about motions to quash or sanctions or whatever, that maybe there's not adequate reference which ones he's talking about. But I think it's abject to me. It's like saying, well, Judge, there's lots on that docket of people telling you that they want this issue to be addressed. So my feeling on this is that it's him reminding the judge you've not dealt with any of these adequately, and there's still plenty of people on that docket that have asked you about sanctions and about expenses and have told you their personal opinion of what's going on in this case, and it's going by the by. So obviously I don't want to go into that all again because I think I did cover this whole thing and all the parts of it. So I'll just briefly show you where I was. So I came into it, let me just see. So why he brought me into it and the snapshots of the other content creators was to show, I guess, that there was some kind of, I think maybe Leanne and Mandy were slightly objecting as well to the fact that we didn't ask to be part of this group that he or she is calling a group or an association. But we are an unorganized group or association, because we're all talking about the same theme, basically, aren't we? So whether we voted to be in this group or association or not, we are there by, sharing a similar common theme, I guess. So I'll show you the exhibit in the moment, but this is the exhibit I show you will be referring to. My intended purpose of seeking these declaratory judgments is for there to be a legal means to redress grievances in this court for the collective as a whole, even where individual members have not yet been or no longer are individually under legal compulsion. The members continue to bear the negative effects of the chilling of their rights and the advancement of the dialogue they once enjoyed, even if they personally aren't named at this time. Joinder of rights would facilitate members of the collective who had previously been subpoenaed to request relief from the court, despite being individually dropped from the request, that the alleged ongoing harm to the collective as a whole justifies our right to seek sanctions or compensation or fees or protective orders and non-exhaustive sundry. We did not arrive as a group, but Ms. Lively opened our eyes to the existence of our common beliefs, and we will fight to express them, free from vindictive and inappropriate oppression. Further evidence of the existence of an association in this regard can be found in Exhibit A. So I am in this as part of this evidence of association, if you like. So it's basically this. And this was what Mandy and Leanne and Cassidy apparently weren't really keen on being out there on the docket. I guess because they're saying we didn't ask to be part of this person's narrative. But like I say, the argument again is, well, if you put yourself out there on YouTube and you're talking about these themes, maybe you took away your own right to say, I don't want to be part of this. And I know some people, people will have different thoughts on that. And I'm not saying one perspective is right and the other isn't, but I just think when you put yourself out there on the internet with an opinion, then you also have to accept the fact that you do put a bit of a target on yourself. You know what I mean? It comes with the territory, like all the harassment Blake's getting comes with the territory. If she'd have been able to take some bad press back in August of 2024, if she could take it on the chin and make a quick apology and visit in a hospital or something like that, shake a few hands, it might have all gone away, might it? But she couldn't. And I think that's the danger with content creators. If you're going to be a content creator, there's going to be a lot you have to take on the chin too. And a lot of people will have an opinion about you that you might not like and stuff like that. So you have to learn to not care about what other people's opinions are, I guess, and such. Yet you have to, if you're going to be a content creator, I think you have to deal with some of your own triggers. You know what I mean? And I do find that sometimes with Andy and Kim on Popcorn Planet that they get very triggered, both of them at times when people don't just, you know, when people in the chat are like, oh, can you speed it up? Or, you know, we didn't come for that because it's not what's on the thumbnail, whatever it is. And he gets really irate and really triggered about, this is my channel and I will present what I want and I'll do it at the speed I want. And he then vents for like 5 full minutes and makes sure that there's an even further delay before he gets to the point. And that is when you know that that is down to stuff from childhood. Something went on there in childhood where he couldn't do things at his own time, in his own way, at his own speed, and he's still pissed about that as a, what is he, late 30s, 40-odd-year-old man? I don't know, but you know what I mean? And Kim's the same. Kim sometimes really rides an edge where she's difficult to watch, I find. And that's when you know, that is the thing. You know, these people, the Megyn Kellys of this world, the Candices and what have you, they've had an awful lot of schooling and training and journalism school and all the rest of it. We as content creators have not, we haven't learned how to not show our triggers out to the world, if you know what I mean. We're a bit more edgy. And that's kind of why we do have to watch ourselves, I think, really a little bit, and choose what we want the world to see in terms of our personalities, I guess. I'm not saying about being anonymous or anything like that. I'm a bit like, and I know there are people genuinely feel like they have need to be anonymous, that it might relate to work or somebody that's slightly dangerous in their life. But I think if you're choosing to be, I have to be honest and say that I think if you're choosing to be on YouTube and you're choosing to talk about other people and their business, then I don't know really how much right you have to be anonymous and not be your face or your real name or whatever. And like I say, I wonder to my little self if that's why I really haven't gravitated towards Cassidy or Leanne, because I don't feel like I know them. You know what I mean? There's a disconnect for me. I think that's just my personal interpretation, because you could sense them as without a crystal ball, but you have seen her face on other videos and stuff. I'd rather see a damaged person with problems in all of the glory, in a way, sort of thing, than just like an illusion, a snapshot of somebody, only the bits they want me to see, if that makes sense. I don't know, might be contradicting my own argument there. But so this is the evidence of association related to what I just read you. So it was, so J Alexander Townsend has included these snapshots in his exhibit. So Ferrer takes random pot shots at Baldoni. That's Lauren's The Court of Random Opinion. This is Omar and Popcorn Planet. And Leanne and Mandy were saying, well, Omar didn't even get subpoenaed. But that's not what, I don't believe that's what Townsend's talking about. They're trying to say there's all these people out there, both subpoenaed and not subpoenaed, or people that may have been subpoenaed that we don't know was subpoenaed, or people that were subpoenaed that just didn't do anything about it because they didn't know what to do about it. There's all this mixed group of us that have this shared opinion, this shared feeling about the misjustice or whatever of it all. So yeah, how much lower can the Blake box go? That's one of Cassidy's, just in Baldoni v Blake Lively, and then there's 3 of Leanne's, you know, and you know, Leanne wasn't over keen on that being on there. Another one of Popcorn Planet with Elsie and Lauren and Andy there, you know, and setting their creators unload on Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds smear tactics. And there's me on the docket with Joey, where we had that conversation about press, you know, because it was good for me to have a bit of a different, you know, perspective on it, and it raises different things in your own mind. So Leanne at that point was, I don't know who this person is. I believe they've only done one interview. I'll have to look into it. And it's like I sit there catching myself, because straight away you could bristle and say, you know, like this. And it's like, you know, she hasn't bothered to Google me or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, I'm not in your girl gang. You know, it'd be easy to feel like that. And so I immediately call myself on it, because straight away you read into the words people use about you and you're looking for a problem. That is what we do. as human beings, because it came off a bit casual and flippant if you wanted to look at it like that. Like, I don't know who is, like we had a person called Nikki Graham in the UK that was on Big Brother, and she was very famous for this new girl came into the Big Brother house, and Nikki went into the Big Brother diary room and went, "Who is she? Who is she? Where did you find her?" And it's like, I have to admit that sitting there listening to my little self get mentioned on Leanne's, there's a little part of me that when it's almost like they're saying, "Who is she?" which is not part of our gang, and then I straight away call myself and think, well, it is what it is. Whatever I think about it isn't necessarily what they mean by it. But yeah, now I presume maybe J Alexander included me because I had previously covered when they had come out in defense of Popcorn Planet and other content creators earlier, saying if content creators are subpoenaed in this manner, I think that's where it was about, then there's a chance that I lose my ability to enjoy their content if they don't feel like they can produce content freely and that they're going to be penalized for it. Then those content creators I enjoy so much might disappear. And I did comment on that. I did a video on it at the time, I believe, because I really quite liked the writing, and I thought, well, this person's got a really good grip on this case and managed to do it in a reasonably succinct way that kind of touches your emotions as well, and the right talking points, I think. So anyway, so I covered it in this big old long thing where I talked about, I think because there was somebody else had done an amicus brief at a certain a non-party. Thomas Carver had also done an amicus brief around the same time as J Alexander Townsend dropped back onto the docket, and I find those non-parties that are just regular people saying it how it is really quite compelling. So I didn't have a problem with this, but other people seem to have, other people that are content creators that are putting these things on the internet. They didn't like that they were included in this thing without their permission, but I didn't look at it like that. Like I say, I felt very much in the middle of it. I didn't get afraid that suddenly I was on the docket, but neither did I think, wow, this is my moment and I'm famous or anything like that either. I was kind of straight down the middle as to, oh, that's kind of funny. It's kind of interesting, but I didn't get like this visceral response or like this anger maybe that Cassidy had, that Leanne and Mandy alluded to, that made Cassidy really, really angry that this person has put that thumbnail up there. Which one is it? Is it there? Watch me not be able to find it now. I'm sure there was the thumbnail there, which was the Cassidy one about Judge Lyman. Could be wrong. Oh, well, I don't know. Anyway, I've lost it now. I'm sure it was there somewhere. But yeah, Cassidy had a problem, and I think it was related to the Judge Lyman one, where it was how many conflicts of interest does he have? And it's like, well, don't draw attention to that. But it's like the whole point of a YouTube thumbnail is to use language and images in a way that will trigger somebody to click on it and notice it. So I don't really think like you can argue that point and not be slightly hypocritical a little bit. I don't think so this was another of the exhibits. I don't know if that was available at the time I did the J Alexander Townsend the last video either. So this was a summation of the calculated lies and manipulations of Blake, if you like. So Blake told Justin that he was safe to talk to her, that he could let his guard down and proceed unfiltered. All of this is in messages, of course, isn't it? Blake Lively told Justin she would rewrite the rooftop scene herself to keep within the woman's perspective principle he was aiming for. Blake Lively told Justin that she would forego employment action if he signed her protections, which she did. Now, about 4 times this one is repeated. Blake Lively told the movie company she would sign her contract. So I don't know if that's emphasizing it or whether it's a mistake. But that same quote is in here a few times. So I think it's that. So I'll try and keep track. Blake Lively told Sony she would concede to Justin's edit if it scored higher than hers in test screening. Blake Lively told her lawyers Justin said she smelled so good. She changed the scenario of it altogether. Blake Lively told her lawyers that she never invited anyone to her trailer while she was pumping breast milk. Blake Lively told them that I don't know where that comes from, told her lawyers. I've missed that, where Blake Lively told her lawyers that she never invited. Well, I guess that's in documents, isn't it? Yeah, maybe so. Blake Lively told the movie company she would sign her contract. So that's the same. That's the same, isn't it? So that's the second time. Ezra Hudson told Blake Lively she had a valid claim for retaliation. Ezra Hudson told Blake Lively she was allowed to file the CRD complaint in her behalf. Yeah, because people say, don't they, that CRD was wrongly filed. Ezra Hudson told Blake Lively she would competently file the CRD complaint so all defendants could legally be pursued in court. Because that's the Jed problem, isn't it? They shouldn't really have been in that CRD. Ezra Hudson told Blake Lively she had a Title VII claim, so that's to do with Me Too and all of that, isn't it? Blake Lively told the movie company she would sign her contract, so that's the third time it's there. And I don't really think that this person would make this mistake, unless it's for a reason. Could be wrong. This is all just my interpretation. Hudson and Gottlieb told non-parties they were named by tag in their R&Os. R&Os, is that requests and objections? Probably, to whatever interrogatories. Hudson and Gottlieb told the court communications always mean agency. Hudson and Gottlieb told the world the Van Zandt scandal was totally normal behaviour for attorneys. Hudson and Gottlieb told Blake the world was being manipulated against her because she's that important. Hudson and Gottlieb told the court that Brian Friedman spoke to the media more than they did. Hudson and Gottlieb told Blake Lively they were right to keep compelling despite Blake's deposition admissions. Blake Lively told the movie company she would sign a contract. So that's 4 times that one's there. So, you know, you can say some of this stuff is inflammatory. Will the judge even consider it? I don't see the harm in going through it because it like shows us things from a different perspective. There's certainly things within this person's productions that I've missed. So the exhibit C of Townsend's thing was evidence of impugning the court. And it's Reynolds, Sloan and Vision PR have moved for an award of attorney's fees and costs pursuant to anti-SLAPP law, New York civil rights law and docket numbers 86 and 132, Lively's moved for an award of attorney's fees, travel damages, and punitive damages pursuant to Civil Code 47.1. The court denies the motions without prejudice. It's the Honours ruling on June 9th because they're still talking as if they've a right to all of these things related to 47.1 and Leslie Sloan and such. They jumped on the James Vituska thing. But the court made clear at that point that he wasn't ruling on anything to do with Civil Code 47.1 back then, yet they still keep bringing that as if that ruling never happened, as if they are still entitled to this kind of protections. So I think that is just trying to say these people aren't even listening to the court, basically. For good measure, the court explicitly reiterated these facts. The motions for fees and damages pursuant to New York civil rights law, blah, 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 are denied without prejudice to renewal by formal motion. So basically saying you'd have to start a whole new court case in a way if you wanted to go after it under 47.1. He didn't consider those amicus briefs. He said that himself, the judge, that you know, Your Honour then clarified that amicus briefs that were never admitted to the docket had no bearing on this decision. Yeah, it's there. It's not there, is it, the Cassidy thing? I've definitely seen it somewhere, the Cassidy thing about the judge. So it's just all evidence there in different ways that still, you know, like how she claimed total victory, and there it is. I knew it was somewhere. This is Cassidy's thing that she didn't like very much. You know, and it's like I say, I don't really know how you argue that. Yes, it would have been nice to have been asked, but maybe they suspected that they wouldn't get any permission if they did ask. I don't know. And I don't know, you know, if that it has been done to me in effect, because not so much. I mean, there's no inflammatory title on where mine is on the docket. But you know, Cassidy chose to put that the thumbnail on the internet, and once it's on the internet, you just can't control what happens to it. And it's like to get irate about it. You know, you have to make that decision at the time you put that on the internet if you're going to stand behind it, because once it's there, isn't it? So that's just the rest of that, really. So not to try and keep you too much longer. Is there anything there? I think that's just the other J Alexander Townsend thing, which we don't. I think we're going long enough. We don't need to. Oops, leave site. I don't know what I did there. We'll leave it up just in case. Otherwise, I'm going to screw something up. So yeah, that's it really. I think that's as far as I need to go into with the J Alexander Townsend thing. But if they did want to contact me and have a conversation and just let me know their perspective, but I'm happy enough for them to just be out there and doing what they want to do. They're not I don't think it's harming anything. The judge may not consider it at all, but I don't think it hurts to have a reminder on there that the world is watching and the world wants answers. And, you know, it's not just going to go away. You know, you're going to have to speak to it at some point, Judge. You know, people paid out money in terms of legal fees all the time, or the hours and hours they had to spend on it where they didn't get to be with the family or whatever else it is. And I think there has to be something addressed to the conduct of Blake's attorneys, because Brian's taking it in the neck, isn't it? You know what I mean? Being held to account left, right, and centre. And so finally, just the only other thing that I'm aware of, and again, thanks to Ashley, Brianna, Eve, because there's so many, you know what I mean? I only have limited time I can devote to this, and I can't do, and I haven't got the time. I'm not being monetized. I can't afford to do an awful lot of research on this, but this is Blake also going after sourced intelligence, which is an investigative firm Liner Friedman took on back in late December to look into Blake and Ryan's companies. So this, Ashley flagged this up the other day that this was going on as well. So that's the other thing that is on the go. So they're being accused now of possibly, you know, tainting the internet and doing wrongful things and the rest of it, that they do, you know, operations on the dark web and such as that. So it's just the latest move in order to try and come up with a case, basically, and to come up with Liner Friedman and Brian Friedman himself as the architects of it all. You know, so I don't really want to keep you with all of it, but it's just to be kind of aware of it, I guess. So I could read that, but it's also quite long. But they came on, their argument is that they came on to look into companies to do with Reynolds and Lively. And that could have been, I guess, that even by December, when it all first came out, they had Liner Friedman must have been thinking quite early on, how have they got information from Jen Abel's phone, and that a subpoena must have had to be made, or a subpoena will have to be retroactively engineered if they want to use those text messages in a legal sense, isn't it? So did that flag up that they needed to look straight away into Lively and Reynolds companies? I don't know, but Blake's argument is that she believes that they were doing like social media monitoring, influencing operations, digital erasure, blah, 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 similar to all the things accusing Jed Wallace of. It's almost like if Jed goes, then they're going to need this as backup, isn't it? If Jed gets dismissed out, then they might still have this sourced intelligence, this invested. So these are blatantly saying, no, we're not giving you anything. You can go hang, basically. This is emails between the various councils about sourced intelligence. Sourced intelligence must produce documents sufficient to show who sourced intelligence communicated with about Ms. Lively. Mr. Reynolds, the Lively Reynolds Companies, the film, the digital campaign, or the consolidated actions. So there's been this argument basically going on in the background about trying to get, and it's like, again, it's most of it will be attorney-client privileged, won't it, as well? And the kind of objecting as well, because the same sourced intelligence is now being represented by Lina Friedman too. So there's more conflict in Blake's interpretation of events. I'm just going to pause and have a quick look and see if anything is this relevant to bring to you. And you've got to love am I recording? I'm gonna have to clip that out. I don't even know if I'm recording at this point. What I like about these attorneys is when they get so pissed off and it's like, Sarah, thank you for your email. We disagree with your position. We are amenable to working with you on a briefing schedule. Amir from Lina Friedman. But basically, their accusation is that this sourced intelligence advertises itself as an expert in reputation management, which includes a particular specialty in digital erasure, including but not limited to wiping metadata and official documents from online repositories. Sourced intelligence also have expertise in scanning all corners of the web, providing a tailored action plan to mitigate critical vulnerability and exposures discovered, as well as scanning the furthest reaches of the internet, including the deep and dark web, allowing clients to stay one step ahead of adversaries. All of this is publicly available on Sourced Intelligence's website. I have to go check that. I don't really know why you'd put that you can get on the deep and dark web on it, but yeah, they're forever after the big accusations that you would have to say. So get rid of that one. Oh, I'm just not going to leave site. I feel like I'd lose you altogether. But again, it's this business of we need it transferring to Lyman's court because he's got far superior familiarity with the underlying issues. And it's like, it just gets so tiresome, doesn't it? This idea of Blake getting everything her way, and it all has to come back to her to be dealt with under her court, under who some feel is her lackey. I'm still on the fence about that, about Lyman. I don't often like what he does, but it's like, to call him biased, I just honestly don't know. So basically, this is the guy from Sourced Intelligence. So he's saying, I'm the founding partner of Sourced Intelligence. I have personal knowledge of the facts set forth herein. If called as a witness, I could and would competently testify to the matters stated herein. In late December 2024, we were engaged by Lina Friedman on behalf of Wayfarer in connection with a lawsuit filed by Blake Lively against Wayfarer. There was no written engagement agreement prepared for this engagement. I reviewed the subpoena attached as Exhibit B to the declaration of Sarah Moses when I received it and searched for responsive documents. All communications responsive to the subpoena were with personnel working for Lina Friedman only. As part of our engagement, we were asked to perform investigative services regarding certain persons or companies I understood to be connected to the action. At the direction of Lina Friedman, Sourced Intelligence prepared investigative background reports and provided those reports to Lina Friedman. Lina Friedman did not direct and Sourced Intelligence did not perform any services related to social media monitoring, influence operations, digital erasure, or web monitoring. Sourced Intelligence did not perform any services connected to any digital campaign as defined by the subpoena. All services performed by Sourced Intelligence were performed at the direction of Lina Friedman in connection with the action. I declare under penalty of perjury, blah, blah, blah. So again, it's this same thing, isn't it? It feels like throw enough dirt and some of it'll stick at the Wayfarer side, isn't it? It's like there's no avenue that will be left unturned in Blake's desire to try and prove that somebody somewhere was orchestrating this now somehow on the deep and dark web as well as the rest of it. And it just continues to all feel a little bit desperate, really, doesn't it? And again, it's that thing of, well, surely most of these things are normal things, normal actions that people do when they're having to take part, when they're forced to take part in a high profile law case where they're the underdog, that they're going to need things like investigative firms and crisis PR, that all of that is normal. Blake's whole thing is to insinuate that none of these are normal measures, when in fact there will be the exact same measures, such as her own CIA crisis PR guy, Nick Shapiro, isn't it? What is Nick Shapiro actually out there doing? Surely he would have found something on Justin and team if it was there to be found by now. You know what I mean? She's got plenty of these kinds of organizations herself, and it's just more of this, I can do it and you can't, isn't it, basically? And like I say, that's what I want us all to watch, that while we're focusing on this case and what Blake should and shouldn't be doing, is to at the same time monitor ourselves and to call ourselves on our own bullshit, basically. And when we're being a little bit hypocritical, and when some of our actions are indeed reflective of some of Blake's, Blake is like the heightened version, if you like, of our worst fears and our triggers and all the rest of it. And we should look at her as such. Look at her as something valuable to be studied, if nothing else. You know what I mean? She could be delusional. I still get the sense, and I know people don't like to believe this, but when she did say that day on that interview, I am a shy person, I don't immediately go, oh, that's bullshit because of the outfits and the jewelry and this, that, and the other. You can be shy and doll yourself up like that and drip yourself in stuff, because it is like a suit of armor. It is like it's like a separation thing as well. It does shield you. It's like many people in the public eye, if you think of in terms of like Beyonce and Eminem and all of the rest of it, it's like an alter ego that you strap on. Beyonce had Sasha Fierce, didn't she? So many people have done that, and it's a way of coping with the world, and it's a way of doing the things that you're not brave enough to do at heart. So I don't immediately dismiss something that Blake says as bullshit just because it's coming from Blake. And I do feel, like I've said before, that if she was truly brought up in this family where she was shown this woman who never accepted no in the form of her mother, and her mother brought her up to not know hardship in terms of knockbacks and stuff like that. So Blake didn't learn how to build up resilience. It makes for a very fragile adult human being out in the world, woman, who will be all over the place in terms of having a perspective on, what's really happening, who would take wild offence at her director pointing out that she had a bit of spinach in her teeth, when really he was only doing it so that she wouldn't have spinach in her teeth in the film. It does make for a very fragile personality who will appear to have the appearance of delusions and the rest of it, and who will be walking a very fine line all the time in her mind, and it will always feel like it is about her, and everything will feel like a personal attack when it's not going her way. You know what I mean? If she only knows positive, then she can navigate through the world quite successfully. But the minute that it turns, it's like it questions every aspect of what she knows about herself, because she's no resilience. So that's why I can retain a little bit of sympathy for her in terms of, I wouldn't want to live in that headspace, and I wouldn't want to never learn any better, and all the rest of it. So my whole focus to you is not just to descend into hate and to hypocrisy and one rule for one and one rule for another. It's just look at Blake, look at Ryan. What can you learn from it? Why are they here? because it's not about who pinched a movie and all the rest of it. It's like we're supposed to be learning lessons from this. The universe has brought this together in this particular way because it thinks it's a worldwide issue that we all need to be addressing in terms of how we look at ourselves. That is my thinking on it. But yeah, that is how I ended up on the Blake Lively docket in the end, through a non-party, through a regular person. And I don't particularly have a problem with it. And if anything comes as an upshot of it, well, then I hold my hands up because it's me who put myself out on the internet talking about this case, basically. So I have to kind of have some accountability for that. But please do hit that like and subscribe and share if you've enjoyed this at all. And yeah, just let me know your thoughts below and what it might be teaching you about the world and this case and what your feelings are on J Alexander Townsend. But I don't like descending into when we start calling people nut jobs or what are they trying to achieve, and I don't like it. It kind of, I think it's because way back when there would have been people, or maybe even my family, thinking I was a nut job, so I kind of get a bit reactive about stuff like that, about, I don't know. I just don't like it. It just doesn't sit well with me. But you drop me a comment below and tell me what you think about it all and whether you think it's quite funny that I've ended up on the docket or not eventually. Oh dear. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate you all out there, and I will see you later. Drop a like and subscribe, and please check out the description box. There's often free resources there.